My name is Guay, and I'm a master's student in the Polar Lab at Polytechnique Montréal. The title of my master's is Evaluation of Sit-to-Stand Exercises in Rehabilitation using a cost-effective markerless motion capture system. Sit-to-stand performance is key to mobility and also independence. As soon as you lose the ability to go from a sitting position to a standing position, you can become reliant on other people to stand up out of bed or to go eat or go to the bathroom. It's also one of the most physically demanding everyday movement, along with walking up and down the stairs, and it's a good predictor for falls as well. Usually, analysis of sit-to-stand is done with charts, for example, doing 5 repetitions as quickly as possible. But digital analysis of sit-to-stand can also be done and has many benefits. For example, you can compare a precise person, one patient, across time, and also you can find very detailed differences from one side or the other, or find particular problems. It is unfortunately rarely used clinically because it takes a lot of time for the patient and the technician, and it's also very costly. Markerless analysis could solve the issue of that system being rarely used because it is less costly and takes less time. Unfortunately, it's less accurate. My goal was to evaluate how reliably and accurately sit-to-stand could be analyzed using an affordable markerless system. I started by selecting a markerless 3D cameras. I have two, a LiDAR and a stereo, and I applied the suitable tracking algorithm. The second part was the system evaluation. First, to extract evaluation metrics, for example, angles, velocity, and symmetries. And the second part was to evaluate the metrics for various conditions, similar to what we would see in a clinical environment. The methods I used was I had a chair surrounded by Vicon cameras, which are marker-based tracking cameras, and that chair was facing two standalone 3D cameras, the LiDAR and the stereo. I recorded multiple sit-to-stand repetitions in different conditions to simulate different limitations that patients would have, also at different speeds to represent different age groups. And I extracted various metrics for comparison. Um, the outcome and impacts were that the system was very easy to use in the lab. The LiDAR camera performed better than the stereo camera. Unfortunately, the errors were acceptable only for a few angles and only for easy conditions. So, as easy conditions, I just mean conditions of sit-to-stand at different speeds, but made using a very standard technique or method of sitting and standing. Unfortunately, for challenging situations, for example, when weight was on one side or the other, the errors were too large. The correlation coefficient was large, and the RMSE was also very large for pretty much all the metrics. The velocities had approximately 20 to 40% error, the peak velocities, and the accelerations were too noisy to be used. It showed the need for a pose estimation software that is adapted to a specific movement, for example, specifically the sit to stand.